Well, salutations, fellow vidiots. Welcome back to yet another episode of that full moon madness, baby. I'm spilling this shit all over me. So today we have for you a very important review. It's not only a milestone because of the fact that it closes out our second wave of reviews and puts us to a nice even 12-pack of fucking full moon segments here as far as numbered reviews go, but it also closes out our first series of sorts. In lieu of like full franchises, we decided to pull off like the original full moon crossover event. We already did a review for Dollman, we already did a review for Demonic Toys, and we already did a review for Bad Channels, so we gotta close it out with Dollman vs. Demonic Toys from 1993. This brings all three of those movies to a conclusion. We get a good happy ending for Brick Bardo, which we'll talk about more at the end. And overall, this movie is pretty damn near perfect. It's got its flaws, I do have my gripes about it, but outside of that, it's everything that you could ever want. And this kind of brought it all to a close for me because I'd seen the other movies and this one before, but I'd never seen Bad Channels. So this is my first time watching the movie with absolutely everything in context, and boy, let me tell you, was it a treat. So without wasting any more time, let's jump in there and find out why. Dollman vs. Demonic Toys was written by Craig Hammond. It was produced and directed by Charles Band himself. It stars Tim Thomerson, Tracy Skogans, Melissa Baer, Philip Brock, the always amazing Phil Fondacaro, probably my favorite Full Moon cast member next to Tim Thomerson, him motherfucking self. And we also got Willie C. Carpenter up in there. It's got music by Richard Band, cinematography by Adolfo Bartoli. It was edited by Mark S. Manos. It was distributed by Paramount Home Video, and it was released on October 13th, 1993. Basic gist of the movie is Tracy Skogans' character, Judith Gray, has been staking out the toy warehouse since the events of Demonic Toys. She's convinced that the toys are going to come back, and it turns out she's right. Old homeless guy ends up eating shit in the warehouse while riding around all drunk on a tricycle, and his blood reanimates the dolls. She shows up just in time to, pop off some shots at him and get busted by the police with the assistance of the always adorable, always amazing Phil Fondacaro playing a tiny security guard holding a full-grown man-sized gun. It turns out that she's been kicked off the force because of her obsession with these demonic toys, and she's just bound and determined to get proper revenge once and for all for them murdering her husband. On the side of this, Dollman, as we know from the end of Bad Channels, was on his way to this small town called Pahuda, where he's hoping to hook up with Nurse Ginger from Bad Channels, who they have retconned to be the lady that was, still shrunk at the end of Bad Channels. In the actual movie, I think it was Bunny who was still shrunk. But Ginger is a sexy nurse. They figured that'd be a better pairing for Tim Thomerson. They were probably right. If you're not going to have Charlie Spradling in there, you might as well just go with Ginger. Anyways, he's made this trek down there, shows up just in time to catch her sunbathing on the counter while trying to make some toast, and he saves her from a spider, which is like a giant spider to them, regular sized spider to us, but he blows that motherfucker away. Happens to get spotted by this reporter who was trying to interview Ginger before while he's doing it, and this makes nationwide news because now there's two tiny people in Pahuda. So Tracy Skogans' character heads on down there to try to recruit these guys to help her defeat the demonic toys because they're tiny, they can go where she can't. So they end up making the trek back on up to the toy warehouse. She unleashes her tiny teammates on the tiny terrors, and the movie goes pretty much how you would expect. It all makes a lot of sense. They don't waste a ton of time on flashbacks. I think each of them gets a 3-minute flashback to get you up to speed on what happened in the previous films. You really can go into this totally blind if you've never watched the movies. I would recommend checking out all three of the previous films, Dollman, Demonic Toys, and Bad Channels, but it's not entirely necessary, and if you haven't seen them in a while, the brief flashbacks are more than adequate to get you up to speed. The main changes you will notice in the movie outside of the retconning of, Bunny for Ginger is the fact that they have changed the voice of Baby Oops-a-Daisy, and it is super fucking annoying. And they've replaced the scariest of the demonic toys, the teddy bear, with this new G.I. Joe dude, who is pretty cool and does have a pretty rad fight scene with Brick Bardo, aka motherfucking Dollman. But Teddy was pretty much my favorite in terms of the, toys originally, and it was definitely a bummer not having him in the movie this time around. In terms of the demonic toys, their whole subplot in the movie is, since, Tracy Scoggins and them fucked up their plans in the first film, their new plan is to have, the devil possess Baby Oops-a-Daisy so then he can bang Ginger and impregnate her with that demon seed so then their master can be reborn. Basically, instead of doing the nasty with Tracy Scoggins, they're going to do the nasty with Ginger. Not a bad upgrade. As you can imagine, Brick Bardo isn't hyped on this, so he does his best to stop it. I'm not going to spoil the entire movie for you guys, but it is pretty much everything you would want in a crossover like this. They did an impeccable job of keeping it nice and tight. Movie ends rated around 64 minutes, and that's including the flashbacks and everything. So it really is just a perfect, quick fix, like beer and popcorn crossover flick. Like I said, this movie's damn near perfect, but it definitely has things about it that I would consider a gripe. I don't like the new voice for Oopsie-Daisy. I realize they probably had to work with what they had. There's still some fucking hilarious dialogue that Oopsie has in the movie, but the voice just overall kind of annoys me. The lack of Teddy in the bitch is definitely something that's noticeable. He's sorely missed. And the weird retconning from bad channels is something that's noticeable as well, especially if you did the marathon like I did and watched them all back to back. It's gonna slap you in the face like a fucking wet fish. I can understand the reasoning behind it. I'm sure, the girl might not have been available. They just thought the sexy nurse made more sense. Ideally for me, like I mentioned, it would have been Charlie Spradling, who played Cookie in the movie, the girl who had the badass hair metal sequence. That stuff aside, though, the movie makes up for it in almost every single other way. The short runtime makes it super easy to tack on to the end of that marathon. It delivers the goods. One could probably argue that the human body count is lower than most movies like this, but that's not the fucking point. The point is watching Dollman go against the demonic toys. That's the fucking title of the movie. I don't go into something like this wanting a bunch of human action. So I probably would have been annoyed at more human parts, much in the same way that I'm annoyed at an excess of them in a kaiju movie. You want to see the fucking fight. You don't want to watch humans dick around. It boasts probably my favorite opening sequence in any full moon movie. I mean, just check it out on Tubi, at least to watch that right now, because it is fucking amazing. It's simple, but the way they do the graphics are just so banging. And obviously, the Dollman music over top of it just makes it even better. The way all the dolls meet their end, with the exception of the G.I. Joe dude, is pretty satisfying. And as I touched on at the beginning of this review, seeing Dollman get a proper send-off, a proper happy ending, he kind of gets to ride off into the sunset with Ginger. I don't think that that's a surprise to anybody, even if you haven't seen the movie. But it's just nice, Because Dollman deserved sequels. He deserved at least a trilogy of movies. It's equally as good as the Trancers stuff. And he's basically playing a slight variation of the same character in both movies, or both series. So he could have easily cranked out a Dollman movie every now and again on the side of those Trancers during the peak of the full moon 90s era. And I think it would have been fucking rad. Would have been really cool to see him go against Puppet Master, in lieu of the crappy Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys movie that we got way later than we should have. More on that down the line. But Dollman deserved more, and I'm glad that he at least got a proper send-off with this movie, because the character is among my favorites in the entirety of Full Moon. He's flagship shit, baby, like I've said since the beginning. And finally, I think this has to get that vote, right next to Dollman and Bad Channels of being, the most replayable Full Moon movies just ever. They're super easy to fucking put on. Demonic Toys is as well, but I think that this one's, right there neck and neck with it. Slightly better, in the fact that it has fucking Brick Bardo in it. Absolutely the best thing about the movie outside of that sweet sleazy reporter dude. But yeah, it's so watchable, partly because of the short runtime, but also just because it fucking kicks ass. So definitely worth checking out. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Anybody wants to get in on a discussion with this, let us know. We're going to be cranking out a bunch of those over the next couple of months, and I'm definitely going to be uploading our original one for Demonic Toys here in the near future. I've been Mosley, you've been a bunch of sexy beasts, and this has been yet another episode of that Full Moon Madness, baby. Cheers. Thanks for watching. You know, fuck it, in celebration, I'm just going to blast a quick straight old fucking Jose Cuervo shot.
The world of Full Moon lives online at fullmoondirect.com. Classics like Puppet Master, Demonic Toys, Subspecies, and more recent favorites Ginger Dead Man, Evil Bong, Killjoy, and more can be found at fullmoondirect.com on DVD, Blu-ray, limited edition box sets, replicas, toys, shirts, and more. Only available at fullmoondirect.com.